want to talk about how I want you to drill down and evaluate an employer. I'm always looking for new and creative ways to teach you, drive home different techniques that you can use to make sure that you're joining the right organization. And I know it's difficult because, right, everybody's on their best behavior when we get into these job interviews, both you and the employer, right? It's like dating. Everybody's trying to be on their best behavior, and it's not always easy to determine, is this the right company for me? Are there any red flags? Should I notice them? Does that make sense? Those kind of things. So I've got one question that I think is going to be great for you to ask, maybe a couple of follow-on questions. But the beauty in this first segment here is going to be not just on what the question is, but really what kind of answers you can get back from the employers and what they might mean to you. So I want to talk about that, and maybe a little bit of a kind of a running start. I think I want to share this with you. I want you to know why we're talking about this topic today and like where the ideas come from. Now, a lot of my ideas for our Thursday topics, they come from you and the questions that you ask me and what you're interested in, or what the themes are of the month, or what's going on in the job market, or what the new techniques are that employers are using. But a couple of weeks back, I was wrapping up the reviews of my fourth book. I've shared a couple times in the last few months that I'm writing my fourth book. The book is done. The manuscript, the official first draft of the manuscript, is going to the publisher on Tuesday, and you can buy it July 9th, 2024. That was not a typo out of my mouth, 2024. Right, it'll be a whole year from now. But I was reviewing it last pass, and I was reading my chapter on self-awareness. I teach in this book on self-awareness. It's just one of the topics of many. And I also teach on this subject in my leadership coaching program. And I was reviewing the chapter, and I talk about internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. There's two types of self-awareness. The internal is really, how well do we know ourselves? Everything from our desires, the environment we want to surround ourselves with, our strengths, what we're good at, what we're not, and how we actually assemble our lives to be congruent with that knowledge, with that understanding. And then there's external self-awareness, which is how we view others' interpretation of us. Kind of that little joke. It's not what you think of me, it's what I think you think of me, kind of thing, kind of the little chuckle there. But it's really, how accurately are we able to assess what someone else thinks of us? And that's external self-awareness. So these are different. You could be strong in one and not the other. You can be strong in both, or you could be strong in neither. And people who are internally self-aware, they surround themselves with environments that are very conducive to their success. They surround themselves with the right people. They know themselves well. They tend to make great career choices. They tend to achieve very, very high goals because they play to their strengths. They know who they are, what they're great at, and they dial up the accomplishments that they want to attain in congruence with that. Conversely, people who lack self-awareness, they tend to make poor career choices. They tend to surround themselves in environments that generally stress them out. They do things for reasons that are not really internally driven, and consequently, they don't achieve really high goals. So I was reviewing this chapter. It was in the middle of the week, and it was just a normal course of my process. And later that day, somebody called me, a buddy of mine. He was talking to me about a relationship, one of his current relationship, and 56-year-old grown men do this from time to time. A little girl talk never hurt anybody. We start talking about his relationship. He's asking me my advice. And then so we get all done with this, and I start thinking, I'm reflecting at the end of the day, which I normally do. And now the motor's starting to run, and I start thinking back into my 20s and my 30s and my 40s and my early 50s about all the people who've asked me about relationship advice. And so I started thinking about like the relationships that worked and the relationships that didn't. The self-awareness combined with this line of thinking, and I'm thinking about some of the common themes. And then when people when I would talk to them and I would say, what do you like about him, or what do you like about her? There would be the people who would be it would be more emotional. It would be vague, and they can't really put their finger on it. He makes me feel so great. I get that really great energy. And consequently, those relationships tended to be up and down and very toxic. But then the other people whose relationships were fairly successful, they had an ability to articulate exactly what was very specific about why that person made them feel a particular way, right? The way she articulates herself, and she's very clear or effusive with how she's feeling, lets me know where I stand, makes me feel good, like I can trust that I always know what she's thinking. Or, I'm not really an organized person, and, I tend to let things slip, but she's always on top of it. I know it's taken care of. I really trust it. I admire that about her because that's not my forte. And it's really nice to be in a relationship where somebody can make that happen. It makes me feel great. This kind of stuff. Wait, give me a show of hands. You could put pound girl talk if you want in the chat, but show of hands. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? Because this is what led me to what I want to talk to you about today and how it comes to investigating employers. Okay. So when I think about you going into a job interview, and I want you to start, if you're not already doing this, there's nothing mind-blowing about the question that I'm going to give you that I want to start asking, but it has to do with self-awareness. It has to do with relationships. It has to do with getting into relationships that will work for you, where you don't see the red flags, okay? So this is the question that I want you to ask, and then we're going to break down what's going to happen as a result of you asking this. Here it is. What do you love about working here? Okay? There's nothing scientific about this, except what I'm about to tell you, I hope will be a bit eye-opening when you think about all the various responses you can get. Now, this is going to be outstanding. If you have one of those day-long interviews where you get to talk to one person after another, what do you love about working here? What do you love about working here? Okay, so here's what happens when you ask this question. So first thing is you can ask it to anybody, and you can ask it to everybody. And what you're looking for is some consistent information. Now, consistency doesn't mean everybody has to love the same thing about the employer. But all the different people might view these things differently, but the collection of this information is going to really help you determine if this is the right employer for you. So when you ask that question, I want you to think about this. Is their response vague or detailed? Okay, so just like I talked about my little relationship example, I didn't bring that up for nothing, right? Are they very specific about what they love? Are they slow to respond? Anybody that's slow, that's bad. Okay, that's bad. Like as in capital B-A-D, bad. But are they general? Oh, it's just, it feels great to work here. They really appreciate us, or it's vague. Okay, that's vague. Or are they very specific? I love the way the employer does this. I love the way they do that. And they start describing very specific situations. That'll tell you something, because the people who are able to articulate what they love about it is going to, number one, let you know that that person is probably somebody who what? Actually likes working there, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is it gives you specific examples that you can notate, right? Because just because this particular person who's internally self-aware, who actually likes working there, is giving you evidence of the fact and able to articulate it very clearly. But now you can start to determine, well, just because you love it for that reason doesn't necessarily mean I would love it for that reason. Okay, now wait. What I'm about to tell you this in the next few of these, I'm not saying one thing or another needs to relate to you and how you would like to work there. If I say to you, I love working here because they really financially reward us, awesome. And more money's always better for everybody. But if the way I want to be appreciated isn't just with the money, or they financially reward us, and I love working here, except that you need to work 80 hours a week, and that's expected because there is no work-life balance. Maybe you're the person whose corporate love language is, I like my free time. I need to travel. I need flexibility and freedom. Now, this person may genuinely love working there. They may be able to articulate it, but they don't have the same love language you do. If you don't know what I'm talking about with love languages, check out Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. Same thing applies to everything in your life. There are, in his estimation, 5 different love languages. If you and your partner are not in sync on the love languages, right, you ain't going to have a healthy relationship. You can go check the book out if you'd like, since we're talking about love. But just this will tell you something, okay? You're going to get data. Then, what about this one I love? Past or the future? Are they talking about something that has happened? I love working here because this is what they do. Last year we did this. The year before we did that. They have this great annual trip that we all take together. They build camaraderie, so on and so forth, and it happened. Or what? You a craps player? You betting on the come? Right? I hope it will happen. Well, we're going to race up the ranks and be number 1 in the market. Hey, in a year or 2, we're all going to be rich because we're going to go public or we're going to get acquired. And all the hard work's going to pay off. Oh, we're building a product that's really going to change lives. It hasn't changed lives yet? You mean it's going to change lives? Maybe you're a gambler. That's okay. I'm okay with all that. But notice this. 1 is specific evidence. 1 is hope, right? Who's tracking with me, right? You see the difference in the way people provide what they love. I love the person I want you to be, and I know you can be. But right? I'm me. Gotta love me for who I am, kind of thing. All right. So I want you to be on the, stretch your ears. Make sure you're on the lookout for that. Do they talk in terms of general employees or specific to them? Do they articulate, I love working here because of something that applies to everyone or something that applies just to me? I love working here because I get the freedom and autonomy to run the entire marketing department the way I see fit. Right. But does everybody else get that freedom? Kind of thing. Okay? So when you're thinking about how they articulate this, are they talking about the group as a whole? Nothing wrong with that. Or are they talking about something specific to them? Nothing wrong with that. But you need to know that you can't just let it slide. You need to say, oh, that's great. You have autonomy. Is that generally provided to everybody? How is that given? How is that trust granted? Right? Kind of thing. Okay? So I want you to be on the lookout for that. Here's another one. Is it external or internal? So is it for us or is it for the outside? Right? I love the way we are viewed as the market leader. I love the way we are the number 1 in the market, and that, right? I care all about our brand. That's okay too. Okay, except that, is it outside or, right? It's all, the career development model that helps us individually grow our skills and do this, that, and the other thing. That's internal, right? So personally you're going to benefit it's a how you look versus what you get kind of thing. So you want to look at whether they go this route or whether what they're sharing is based on views from the outside or whether it's internally dialed in effectively. Okay? And so I want you to just kind of think of, after you ask this question, what do you love about working here? What you really want to do is you want to look to see, are they vague or detailed? Can they actually articulate it? That's going to tell you something. Is it related to the past or the future? Has it happened or will it happen? Right? Are you betting on something that you don't know? Do they speak collectively about employees or do they speak specifically about themselves? And is it external or internal? And then as a couple of little follow-ups here, one of the things that you can do, I love to follow up these kind of questions with things like, were you surprised by that? You love this about the company. Did you know that before you got here? Meaning, did you discover that in the interviewing process? Was that consistent? If you didn't know that, why didn't you know that? What might I be surprised about when I join here, right? I've given you that one before in other talks and in my interview intervention book back there. All right. And so you can follow up, and you can follow up at each level as well for each of those 4 levels that I gave you. Okay. And then just to kind of cap it off, I think there's a video that I have out there titled, let me just make sure I get this right. 28 questions to ask the employer in a job interview. I would check that one out. And I think that will really help you, gauge whether or not, and get more information about whether that company's the right one for you, or whether it ought to be setting off some red flags. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that one. If you're here with me live, we're going to be going into the next segment and then into the Q&A. If you're watching this on a recording, I'll see you next week.